Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Srimati Swami
তোমাকে দেখো কমেছে ভিডিও
Not able to hear properly. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Rama Rama Hare. Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama Rama Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Krishna, Rama Rama,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Shila Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Shila Gurudev. Jai Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gora Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jai Gora Hari Bol.
Jai Gaur Premanande, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Nam,
Jai.
Sankirtan ki
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. Onam Gandan Swami Maharaj.
Prabhupada ki Jai. Kanchan Mataji and Mukunda Prabhu ki Jai. Thank you very much
Prabhuji,
for
Hare Krishna.
wonderful, wonderful kirtan as usual. Are you able to hear my voice, or is it? How is it now? Is it echoing now?
It's echoing, Prabhu.
Now also?
No, now it's clear.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Somehow my computer video is not working, so I logged into iPhone as well. So until Ajit Krishna Prabhu, he just pinged me saying that he'll be late 5-6 minutes. So until he comes, we can discuss about what we learned previous class. So is Ramsham Prabhu there? Is busy? Okay. So do anyone remember what we discussed last week?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Guru Shishila Prabhupada.
Yes, Prabhu. Last class we Prabhuji was explaining about only bhakti. Through bhakti only we can reach to the Supreme Lord, and not through yoga. I mean yogic processes, because that is like we are not sure. Because we may even fall down when we are practicing that. We may not reach to the goal, and it's very difficult to follow that process. And even Prabhuji had given examples of Brahma Vimohan Leela. We were discussing about that, and you had given about Jada Bharat, like so I remember. That's it, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu.
Very nice. So what process are we talking here about?
Yogic process, Ashtanga Yoga process.
So it doesn't work, is it? Because it's very difficult in this age of Kali?
Yes, in the age of Kali, it is not recommended. Prabhu.
It is not recommended because it is very difficult.
Yes, Prabhu.
Because there are so many rules and regulations even to do yoga.
Yes, because we are always with these modes. Right? We cannot come out of the modes very easily when we are in this world. Even Lord Brahma and Lord Indra, Lord Shiva, they themselves were affected by the modes. That is for us to see the Leela. Krishna had arranged that way. But yes, so Sankirtan Yajna is the best way to come out in this Kali Yuga, Prabhu.
Very nice. So where is this Shastric evidence for that?
You
Any-
missed the Sankirtan Yajna where it is, Prabhu.
Yes, where is it evidence that Sankirtana Yajna is the topmost? Hare Krishna Prabhu, Ramcham Prabhu, Dhanat Pranamal Guru Shishra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanat
Is there
Pranam.
any Shastric evidence?
Not sure. Prabhuji, I think it is Padma Purana.
What is that?
Padma Purana.
Okay, yeah, tell me that. Can you share that? Ramsham Prabhu, we were just discussing recap about last week. Mataji wonderfully explained, summarized in several sentences, all that.
Nice.
So I'm just asking a question that where is in the Shastra evidence that Sankirtana is the greatest movement instead of other yogas?
Yeah.
How is it only Sankirtana yoga is the best? Where is the Shastric evidence?
Shikshashtakam, Prabhuji.
Okay, tell Prabhuji, what is that?
Huh? Shikshashtakam, Prabhuji.
Okay, tell me that. Where is it in Shastakam? You're right.
Sada Kirtana. Kirtane Sada Harihi.
Kirtane Sadahari.
Can you recite the verse or no?
The whole thing, Prabhuji? Or is the whole Chetodar Pranamajanam Bahamahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairavachandikavataranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamritaswadanam Sarvatma Sapadam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam.
Yes, Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Param Vijayate. Okay. Any other Shastric evidence or Shastric verses where it says Sankirtana is the topmost? Ramsham Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhuji. I mean, it's there in the Bhagavatam in the last 12th canto, Yagya Sankirtana Praya. So that's the one. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Hare Nam, Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nastev Gatiranyatha. So many places only because in the Kali Yuga, only Nam Sankirtan is the preferred. That's what the second verse of the Bhagavatam 1.1.2. No, it is said like other things are cheating religions. Dharma projita kaitavatra parmo nirvit sarnam satam. So only Nam Sankirtan is the yagna for this Kali Yuga. So the reference from the Bhagavatam, reference from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, what I told, and in the Bhagavad Gita also, Yagya Dana Tapaschaya Pavanani Manusanam, Yagya Dana Tapaha. So in that way, whatever we have to do, and we have to do the for the Krishna, and that way, by the chanting. So yeah, in
Nice.
the Bhagavad Gita, many places, Prabhuji, Krishna told, like if you say that, like Krishna is saying that if you surrender also, or manamana bhav mat bhakta and matchita mat gata prana. So in that way, means by chanting itself, we have to do the chanting. And as what which Prabhu was just speaking. What is the name? Sarvanti Mataji's son.
Suhrud.
Surat Prabhu.
Surat Prabhu was saying that Sikshastakam sloka. So that is the sloka given, means verses given by directly Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So those are the best references.
Very nice, Prabhu. Wonderful.
There's one more Prabhuji in Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes, Prabhu.
Srimad Bhagavatam 11th chapter.
Krishna Varna.
Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishnam Sango Pangastra Vashadam Yash
Yajnai Sankirtana
Pranayad Yayantihi
Sumedasa.
Yes, wonderful. That's beauty. Very nice. Also the main mantra, right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashaka Namnam Kali Kalmasha Nashanam. Right? You heard about this? Iti Shodashaka Namnam. These 16 syllable words. Kali Kalmasha Nashanam. So it will, all the kalmashas in this Kali, it will be eradicated only by, chanting this mantra. Nato parataro upayo. There is no other way. There is no other way. Nato parataro upayo. There is no other upay.
Right.
Sarva Vedeshu Drishtasi. All these Vedas tell this. This is in Kali Santarana Upanishad. So, yeah, all are wonderful.
And same reference is there, Prabhu, that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as well. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram.
Hare Hare.
So only that reference there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita means the complete Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In the other references like there, it's somewhere in the indirect or indirect way. In something we can say directly there also, but here it's given directly, the same Mahamantra. So yeah. So these are the best references. By that we can those by those Sastric references we can recite and we can pledge to the Lord. And if anyone asks like why we chant that, so we can explain that also.
Yeah, wonderful. There's so many references actually. So nobody can, in fact, argue with these, because these are all Shastric evidences that Mahamantra is the topmost, and by doing that, what is the effect also? Kali Kalmasha Nashanam, we just heard about it, right? So all the Kalmashas will be eradicated. Kali Kalmashas means basically what we have, six Kalmashas we have, right? So all those can be eradicated just by chanting Mahamantra. So it is very important. Mukunda Prabhu, you have something, please?
Yes, Prabhuji. I wanted to say that the Kevalastakam, this bhajan, it is like dedicated to the glories of the Mahamantra. Like,
Yes.
In specific lines, for example, Hare Nameva Kevalam, and then all the other ones.
Wonderful. That is very, very, very
lines are glorifying the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
correct. Nice reference, Prabhu. Mukunda Prabhu. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Ajit Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranam, Algo Shishila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam, Algo Shishila Prabhupada. Sorry, I'm a little late today, but my apologies for that.
Yeah, actually, we were just discussing about what we heard from you last week.
So you're doing like a recap of some sort?
Yes, Prabhu, recap.
Okay.
Somehow my camera on my computer is not working, so I logged in through my phone today.
Okay, that's all right. I'm also on my phone only.
So let's start, Prabhu.
Okay. Just trying to set this up. All right.
Let me share my screen.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandas Pranams always to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranam, Algo Shishila Prabhupada. Jai.
Sorry, if anybody can remember what verse we stopped last week.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, don't know this Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam, Algo Shishila Prabhupada. Jai. Last time we had done I'll just
17th verse, no, Prabhu? We finished 17th verse. I think.
that sounds right. Yes.
17th. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah,
17th
15 to,
yeah.
15 to 17 we did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen. This is one of the most important verses and also very much related to us. So who wants to recite? Go with.
Are you going at 17? Okay.
17 we have done, Prabhu.
Yeah.
17 we didn't do.
Ganesh.
I don't think 17 we did.
Didn't do, Prabhu. We didn't do 17. We had to start.
Yes, we
Okay.
start.
Prabhuji Ganesh.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yuktahara
Yuktaha
Viharasya
viharasya
Yuktachetasya karmasu
Yukta chestasya
karmasu
Karmasu.
Swapnavabodhasya
Yukta
swapnavabodhasya
swapnavabodhasya
Yoga bhavati dukkha.
yogo
bhavati
dukkha.
Translation. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system.
Thank you, Surat Prabhu. 18th. Narsimha Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yada viniyatam chittam
Yada
Viniyatam chittam
atmaneva vatistate
atmaneva vatistate
nishpraha sarva kamebhyo
Nishpruha sarva kamebhyo
yukta iti uchyate tada.
yukta iti uchyate tada.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai Prabhupada.
When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu. 19. Mukund Prabhu is there?
Nukun.
Anyone else?
Tyaguji, you there?
I'll do, Prabhu.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yatha dipo nivastastha
Yata dipo nivatasto
egate sopama asmrita
lingate sopama smrita
yogino yata chittasya
Yogino yata
tasya
yunjato yoge atmanah.
yunjato
yogam
yogama.
atmanaha.
And the translation by His Divine Grace, Sabhay Charna Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendental self. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare-
Prabhu. Shall we repeat or shall we go at 20?
It's 17. Yeah, let's repeat. And actually, I wanted, when we come to 18, I wanted to kind of just recite one of the verses from the purport as well, because that is very, very instructive.
Yeah, that is Amrish Maharaj, right?
Rishi Maharaj, yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful.
Sarvai Krishna Manaparadamendayo, you know.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, anyone wants to go with 17?
Prabhuji, can I do?
Yes, go ahead, Brinda.
Yuktahara viharasya
युक्ताहार विहारस्य
Yukta chetasya karmasu.
युक्ता चेतस्य
चेतस्य
कर्मसु
Yukta swapna vabodhasya.
युक्ता
युक्ता
स्वप्नावबोधस्य
स्वप्नावबोधस्य
Yogo bhavati dukkha.
योगो
योगो
भवति
भवति
दुःखः.
दुःखः.
He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Mataji. Any Matajis? Satipriya Mataji, Swarnangi Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu, we can go.
Yes.
Yada viniyatam chittam
Yada viniyatam
Chittam
नियतं चेतम्
eva vatishtete
आत्मनि एव तिष्ठते
nispraha sarva kamebhyo
निःस्पृहः सर्वकामेभ्यो
Sarvakameभ्यो
yukta iti uchyate tada.
yukta
मुक्त
ichate
तदा.
tada.
Translation: when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga.
Hare Krishna.
Recite this, bro.
Yes, the Savai Krishna Mana, Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayor.
Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor.
Savai Mana
Krishna
Krishna Padaravindayor.
Vachamsi vaikunta gunanuvarnane.
वाचांसि वैकुण्ठ
Kunta Guna Varnane.
Karau harer mandira marjanadishu.
करौ हरेर्मन्दिरमार्जन दिशौ
Tuchim chakara yuchate sat kadodye katodye.
Shrute
श्रुति मुक्त्यकारायुक्ता
Sat kadodye.
सत्तोदये.
Next one, somebody else can do.
You can read the translation for that, Prabhuji, which is right there, King Amrish.
You want to recite and then read, or just read?
Because you just recited the verse, so the translation is that King Amrish.
The translation is for all the verses, right? All the stanzas. Yeah. It is for all three stanzas. So let me recite the whole thing.
Okay.
Mukkandalingalaya darshane drishau tadbhrutya gatra sparshene sangamam granam cha tatpada saroja saurabhe Srimad tulasya rasanam tadarpite Padaur hare kshetra padanusarpane Hiro rishikesha padhabhivandane Kamam cha dasyana tu kamakamyaya Yatottama sloka janashraya rathi. King Ambarisha first of all engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. Then one after another, he engaged his words in describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, his hands in mopping the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the activities of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the transcendental forms of the Lord, his body in touching the bodies of the devotees, his sense of smell in smelling the scents of the lotus flowers offered to the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaf offered at the lotus feet of the Lord, his legs in going to places of pilgrimage and the temple of the Lord, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in executing the mission of the Lord. All these transcendental activities are quite befitting a pure devotee.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you, Prabhuji. 19, is anybody left who would like to recite? I'm just scrolling through to see who was left.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
I think Kabuji left. He was, oh, no. He'll join late. I think I delayed him a little bit. He was with me short while back.
this is also a wonderful sloka. Actually.
Which one?
This is very nice verse.
Yeah, the 19 or the one?
No, all three verses are wonderful.
Yeah, about Maharaj Amrish. I mean, that is the perfection of, so that's why I wanted to kind of read that so we can discuss it a little bit as we discuss. So lastly, if somebody wants to please read text verse 19, then we can.
Okay, if nobody's coming, I can. Yata dipo nivatasto
Yatha dipo
Nivatasto
ningate sopama smrita
Ningate Sopamasmrita
yogino yata chittasya
yogi
Yatatasya
yinjato yogamatmanaha.
yunjato yogamatmana.
As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. Thank you, bro.
Hare Krishna. All right. So and these verses are basically from the Bhagavatam related to Maharaj Amrish. One second. All right, we'll just start with the invocation prayers and then continue. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unminitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Evam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lata Shri Visakamita He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Pute Tapta Kanchana Gopi Radhe Shwari Vrishabhanu Suri Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nanda Shri Advaita Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay, so last time, as we had discussed, so in this chapter from text 10 to 17, 17 being the last of this section that I was talking about, in text 10 to 17, Krishna has described how the yogi should meditate. And if you recall, there were different instructions given about how the yogi should sit, where he should sit, on kusha grass, on an elevated place, in a sacred place, and all that kind of thing. And then finally in text 17, Krishna says he was regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So these are all the instructions on how to practice, how to meditate. And then now from text 18 onwards, Krishna basically describes what state the person reaches or what the symptoms are of the person who has perfected Ashtanga Yoga. And so in 18, Krishna says, Yada viniyatam chittam atmaneva vatishtate nishpraha sarva kamebhyo yukta iti uchyate tada. So yukta means perfectly situated in yoga. So the translation says, when the yogi by practice of yoga disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, then he is said to be well established in yoga. So this is basically the symptom of the yogi who has perfected Ashtanga Yoga. Now, you will notice in the purports, Prabhupada keeps clarifying that while these are all processes of Dhyan Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, the practice of Krishna consciousness or the practice of bhakti automatically achieves all of the benefits that yoga can give a person. And at the same time, it gives the person more. The devotee gets more than what just the yogi gets, which is the opportunity to engage in direct service to the personality of God, that is Sri Krishna. The yogi doesn't engage in personal service to the Supreme Personality. He basically meditates upon the Super Soul. But the perfection that the Ashtanga Yogi can attain, such as all his mental activities become situated in transcendence, that automatically becomes available to the Bhakti Yogi. And then in text 19, Krishna gives a very important analogy. He says that as a lamp in a windless place doesn't waver, similarly, the mind, when the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. So the transcendent self becomes the super soul, the Paramatma. And so the yogi, the perfect Ashtanga Yogi, focuses his mind on the super soul and thereby remains steady in his meditation. Nothing can distract his mind. But in order to reach that stage, look at the kind of practice that the yogi has to engage in. One, he has to sit in a secluded place on kushagrahas, hardly eating or sleeping or resting or anything. So Krishna is describing this like we had discussed last time. He's describing this to demonstrate to us that this process is very difficult. While it is recommended as one of the processes of spiritual advancement, but it's a very difficult process. And he wants us to understand the difference so that we can then be convinced about the practicality and the benefits and the efficiency of the Bhakti Yoga process. So first benefit is that Bhakti Yoga is not physically as difficult as the Ashtanga Yoga system. And second benefit is that all the benefits that can be derived from Ashtanga Yoga are automatically derived from the practice of Bhakti Yoga. And so then the question becomes, then how should we practice Bhakti Yoga? Now, over here, Prabhupada then gives the example of Ambarish Maharaj, how he engaged himself in 24 hours a day in the devotional service of the Lord while he was a king and he was ruling his kingdom. So this is very important for us because this is practical application of Bhakti Yoga to our everyday life. Unlike the Ashtanga Yogi, we don't have to give up our home or our profession or our responsibilities to look after family, children, and so forth. We can continue with those. Maharaj Ambarish was a grahastha, and he continued with those responsibilities, but at the same time, he was the greatest devotee. And so he achieved all of the benefits that the devotee or the yogi achieves. So in the first verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is quoted by Prabhupada in the purport for text 18, Savai mana Krishna padara vindayo vachamsi vaikunta gunanuvarne. So let's just analyze this a little more closely. So Savai mana, so the mind, Amrish Maharaj fixed his mind on Krishna Padaravindayo, on the lotus feet of Krishna. Lotus. Aravindayor are lotus, Padar, the feet of Krishna. Vachamsi, his words, Vaikuntha Gunanu Varnane. So he engaged his words in describing the glories, Guna. Anuvarnane meaning describing the glories, the gunas of Vaikuntha, the Lord's abode. Then Karau Harer, so his hands, Kara his hands, Karau Harer, Mandira Marjanadishu, in cleaning the temple of the Lord. And Shrutim Chakarichata Satkatholai, and in hearing about the glories of the Lord. Then Mukunda Lingalaya Darshane Darshau, so his eyes, he engaged in beholding the deity form of the Lord. Drishau Darshane. Darshane means seeing. Drishau is his eyes. In Mukunda Lingalaya, the form of Mukunda, Krishna. Why Mukunda is used here, not Krishna? Because Mukunda gives
the liberation.
Liberation. I was waiting for Namsham Prabhu to say that. That's why you named his son that, you know.
Yeah,
So Mukunda. So he gives liberation. So when a person's senses are engaged in Krishna's service, then Krishna gives him liberation from material bondage. So therefore, he is appropriately referred to as Mukunda. And then Tad Britya Gatra Sparshe Anga Sanganam. So, and Tad Britya, meaning the servants of Krishna, Gatra Sparshe, in touching the body. So he was touching the bodies of the devotees of Krishna, the servants of Krishna. So that's how he purified his hands. Granam Chatat Pada Saroja Shaurabhe. So Granam. So Granam refers to his sense of smell. In sense of smell, in Tatpada Saroja Saurabhe. Saroja is flowers offered to Tatpada, the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Saurabhe. So engaged his sense of smell in smelling the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. And Srimad Tulsaya, so the Tulsi leaves, beautiful Tulsi leaves, Srimad Tulsaya, Rasanam Tad Arpite. And so Rasanam meaning his tongue tasted the Tulsi leaves offered at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So in this way, we are seeing how each and every sense of the devotee can be engaged in the service of the Lord. Then lastly, he says, Padau Hare Kshetra Padanu Sparshane. So Padau, meaning his legs, Hare Kshetra, places of pilgrimage, Padanu Sarpane. So he used his legs to walk to the places of pilgrimage of the Supreme Lord. So these are our senses and working senses. All of these are being engaged, or we are seeing how Amrish Maharaj engaged all of his senses and working senses in the service of the Lord so that we can get inspiration from there. And Shiro Rishikesha Pada Bhivandane, so his head in Rishikesha. Rishikesha Padad Bhivandane, in worshipping or in bowing down to the lotus feet of Rishikesha. So why is Krishna being referred to as Rishikesha here? Rishikesh meaning master of the senses. Why is he being referred to as master of the senses? Because the head is the head of the body, right? The brain is in the head. The head is head of the body. When your head is offered is used to offer obeisances to the Supreme Lord, then means all of your senses are subordinate to the head. They are being used in the service of the Lord. So when the head is offered to the Supreme Lord, then it means the Lord, we are recognizing that the Lord is the master of all the senses, and therefore we are bowing our head down in obeisances to the Supreme Lord. So that's why he's referred to as Rishikesha here. So Shiro Rishikesha Padabhivandane, then Kamam Sadase Natu Kama Kamyaya. So Kamam Tadase, Kama means his desires. Dasye, Dasye. See, that's a very interesting word he uses. Dasye means become a servant. They become a servant. Dasye. To who? Not to. Indeed. Kama Kamyaya, with the desire for sense gratification. Meaning, he purified his desires so that they wouldn't be a servant to satisfying his own desires. Kamam na dasye, kamam cha dasye na, tu kama kame, dasye na, not a servant. Dasye na. So his own desires, kamam is his own desires, dasye na, not a servant. His own desires were not a servant of whom? Kama kamyaya, the desires for sense gratification that may arise in one's own mind. So he says, okay, I will protect my personal desires. I will not let them become a servant of the modes dictating desire for self gratification to me, and instead I will offer them in service to the Supreme Lord. Then last, see, so he says, Yatha Uttam Shloka. So Yatha Uttam Shloka Jana Ashraya. If Uttam Shloka refers to the Lord, is also referred to as Uttam Shloka because he's glorified by Uttam Shloka. What is Uttam? Uttam means that it takes us above ignorance. Tama is ignorance. Tama. Tama is mode of ignorance. But Ut means above, transcendental too. So Uttama means transcendent, above the mode of ignorance. So because Krishna is above all ignorance, he's referred to as Uttam Shloka, one who was glorified by verses that are above, transcendental to any of the contamination of the modes of ignorance, etc. So Uttam Shloka Jana Ashraya Rati. So he had Uttam Shloka Jana Ashraya. Jana means a person, and Uttam Shloka Jana Ashraya means a person. Ashraya means taking shelter. So a person, Jana Ashraya means a person who has taken shelter of whom? Uttam Shloka, of the Supreme Lord. Uttam Shloka is another word for the Supreme Lord. Jana Ashraya, that is those who have taken shelter of the Supreme Lord, meaning high-class devotees of the Supreme Lord, like Prahlad Maharaj. So he says, Yathottama Shloka Janashraya Rati. Rati means attachment. So Amrish Maharaj had an attachment for the devotees of the Supreme Lord, devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, who are referred to as Uttam Shloka Jana Ashraya. So if we were to actually list out, I should have done that, but sorry, I was late as it is, but if I had time, I would have done that. We would have just listed out all of the activities that have been described there so beautifully. There are some subtle activities and gross activities that have been described in these three verses, and how those subtle and gross activities can all be engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, following the example of Amrish Maharaj. And why subtle and gross have been described? Because naturally our body is made up of the 5 gross senses and the 3 subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And here we are seeing how Amrish Maharaj engaged his gross senses, meaning eye, nose, ear, etc., touch, in the service of the Lord, eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, nose in smelling the flowers to the feet of the Lord, hands, sense of touch in touching the bodies of the devotees of the Supreme Lord, so offering obeisances, touching their feet, etc. Ears in hearing about the Supreme Lord, tongue in tasting the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Then the working senses, he engaged his legs in going to places of pilgrimage, hands in cleaning the temple of the Supreme Lord, and so forth. So all these wonderful activities have been described. And then when it came to his mind, he engaged his mind. First, right in the beginning, it says, Sarvai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo. He fixed his mind on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And what that means is not only that you keep meditating upon the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord in your mind, but also offering obeisances mentally to the Supreme Lord. Then we saw even with his head, he bowed down and offered obeisances. But mentally, he offered obeisances to the Supreme Lord and to the devotees of the Supreme Lord. Uttam Shloka Janashraya. So Prahlad Maharaj was not standing there in front of him, but mentally he was offering obeisances to Prahlad Maharaj and other devotees of the Supreme Lord. So just like in order for us to do this, what one practice do we follow every day? This is just a quick question for you all. Anybody? How do we offer obeisances to Uttam Shloka Jana Ashraya in our daily lives? And all of us are doing it. You're on mute, Prabhuji.
Do dandavas to in the deity room?
Yes.
Yes, very nice. Very nice. Anybody else?
I mean, we every day we say Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripasindhutyasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhinam.
Jai.
In
Exactly.
front of these devotees.
Exactly. So every day we recite this Vanchakalpatarubhyasya. After reciting the 10 offenses, we offer our obeisances, following in the footsteps of Maharaj Amrish. Uttam Shloka Jan Ashraya. So this way our mind also is engaged in serving the devotees of the Supreme Lord, in glorifying the Lord. So these are all some very, very practical recommendations. And another very important subtle point to note is that kamam chadasye na tu kama kamyaya, that his desires, he controlled his desires. So you can only control your desire through purified intelligence. Intelligence controls the mind, mind controls the desires. And so with the intelligence purified by chanting the holy names of the Lord, we can strengthen our mind to try and not engage the mind in topics of sense gratification. So this is all, this was all practiced by Amrish Maharaj. So here we are seeing, so Prabhupada gives us this very important set of 3 verses regarding Sukhdev Goswami described to Maharaj Parikshit how Amrish Maharaj engaged his entire existence in the service of the Lord to demonstrate that even though the process of Dhyan Yoga as part of Ashtanga Yoga can help the yogi advance, but if a person were to simply follow the example of Amrish Maharaj and engage in devotional service as described here, he will achieve the same benefits. This is a much more pleasing and practical way of engaging or making our mind steadily fixed upon Krishna's lotus feet and Krishna's service. So just like the yogi, as described in text 19, his mind becomes unwavering, like a flame in a windless place, a devotee's mind also becomes unwavering, regardless of what activity the devotee is engaging in. So if Maharaj Amrish was sitting there and ruling his kingdom and making various judgments during the course of the day, regarding practical material matters. He was doing that with the consciousness that he was trying to serve the Supreme Lord. What circumstances he came across on a particular day, that came from the Lord. But how he responded to them, how he responded to all the situations that he was faced with, all of that was done in a devotional manner, in a manner or in a mindset of wanting to please the Lord. So that way, every action of his became an action of devotional service. And so, even though the yogi can go and sit down in a secluded place, Maharaj Amrish sat in his courthouse, did his daily work of passing judgments and ruling his kingdom, but everything was done in the service of Krishna. And even in text 17, because here it is stated, he who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So the Dhyan yogi can do these things, meaning regulate his eating and sleeping, etc. The yogi actually, when he becomes advanced, he hardly eats or sleeps. But a devotee can regulate his eating how? By eating only Krishna Prasad. By even sleep. Sleep is necessary for us to keep our bodies healthy and active. But as we've discussed before, if we keep if we view the need for sleep as a natural arrangement for making our bodies strong and rejuvenating our energy so that we may spend the rest of the day in service of the Lord in a energetic, healthy manner, then sleep is a tool for devotional service. It is not a distraction. Similarly, recreation and work, etc. So all of these things are mentioned here in the purport also. And Prabhupada kind of explains that a Krishna conscious person cannot bear to pass a minute of his life without being engaged in the service of the Lord. And his ideal in this respect is Srila Rupa Goswami. Now, of course, Rupa Goswami and others, they were very elevated persons. Prabhupada says Rupa Goswami slept no more than 2 hours a day. Srila Prabhupada himself was, he got by with that kind of minimal sleep, 2 to 3 hours. I mean, for most of us, that is not possible because our bodies are not at that level. But the point that they're making is that a person can use his sleep as a tool for rejuvenating the body. As long as our waking hours are spent in the service of Krishna, then the sleep is not a waste of time. It is actually a good use of time. So the point Prabhupada makes is that time should not be wasted. And then he says, as far as work is concerned, Krishna conscious person does not do anything which is not connected with Krishna's interest. And thus his work is always regulated and is untainted by sense gratification. So whatever results of work we get, as long as there is gratitude in our heart, then this has been provided by Krishna, and therefore it should be used in the service of Krishna. That cleanses our thought process, that cleanses our mind, and ensures that we don't view work as simply a means for earning money to engage in sense gratification. Instead, we use it as a means for earning money to maintain our body and souls, maintain our families, and use the proceeds as we can also in the service of the Lord, supporting the Krishna consciousness movement, doing all those sorts of things, donation, charity, etc. It's all there. So that is all done in a clean manner, all for the service of Krishna. And then Prabhupada says, because he's regulating all his work, speech, sleep, wakefulness, and all the body activities, there is no material misery for him. So, why is Prabhupada saying that there are no material miseries for him? It's because the attachment and sense of proprietorship for material things gets washed away from a person's mind. Even though we are engaged in material activities, even though we earn money, But because we know fully well that all of this actually belongs to Krishna, it's been given to us, our share has been given to us by Krishna to use in his service, but it's not really, doesn't belong to us. That helps us not be attached. And the less attached we are, the less materially miserable one feels. Now, there's also, on a slightly different topic, the cycle of material miseries is a whole different topic. We can discuss that another time. But the overarching point here that Prabhupada is making is that as long as the sense of false proprietorship is not there, as long as a person is well aware that, everything that I get is by the mercy of the Lord, you're in a safe place. See, we find so many books in the material world, like how to become rich. I can guarantee you to become rich, and these sorts of books actually are bestsellers. Everybody wants to know an easy way to become rich. Prabhupada never described Krishna consciousness as a get rich quick scheme. He said this will cut your attachment to material riches. So people were kind of, if you think about that, it's the complete opposite of all of these, Stephen Covey's 7 habits of becoming very successful. Not that those are bad things. Those habits are very good habits, but if we employ them in Krishna service, then that's a very good use of it. If we employ them only to become rich so we can have more sense gratification, travel to Vegas and all that kind of nonsense, engage in gambling and all that, then that's a curse. Then those riches are actually a curse. They are binding us. So this is the understanding that happens. This is the cleansing that happens due to the process of devotional service. And now, like here in this verse, when he says a person who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, see, we are recommended to follow the 4 regulative principles. Why? Because these 4 prohibitions are designed to create a suitable atmosphere, a conducive atmosphere to chanting the holy name of the Lord. See, there are many people who are not devotees, but they still follow the 4 regulative principles. They're vegetarian, they don't gamble, don't drink, no illicit thing. People are there who follow these things, but they're not devotees. So they are very pious people. But the difference between a devotee and a simply pious person is that the devotee then creates this favorable atmosphere by following the 4 regulative principles and then engages himself in chanting the holy name of the Lord. Because the process of bhakti is based on 2 major pillars, the 2 foundations that hold up the process of bhakti. One is always remember Krishna, and the other is never forget, right? And so all the do's support always remember Krishna, right? Chant 16 rounds, eat Krishna prasadam. These do's support that pillar of always remember Krishna. And the don'ts, they support never forget Krishna, meaning no gambling, no meat eating, etc. All of this helps you never forget Krishna. Because if you're gambling, you will forget Krishna. So if we follow this framework of always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna, all the do's and don'ts of bhakti fit into those 2 categories. And that's why, as we see in text 17, the yogi is also advised to regulate their sleeping, eating, and all that. But the devotee automatically is doing all of that and getting all the benefits. Okay, Prabhuji, Mataji, I'll stop here. If you have questions, comments, we can. Yes, Prabhuji.
So, Prabhu, one thing which many people have asked about, that Krishna consciousness is all about Krishna consciousness and nothing material. So what does this recreation means? Are we not supposed to play games, not supposed to watch movies, not supposed to go to go outside hotels, eat or get together? Those are all recreations in our times. So many have asked about it. Krishna himself said recreation, so why are you stopping it? So can you please elaborate on that too?
Sure, Prabhuji. Very nice question. So recreation is actually very important and it is necessary. But here, as he says, we are regulated in recreation. Regulated. It's not prohibited, but is regulated. So actually, Prabhupada says that our Krishna consciousness movement is one of recreation. All we do is we sing and we dance, and then we get tired, so then we eat prasad. Then we sing and dance some more, and then we get tired, then we take some more prasad. So recreation is actually a very important part of our practice. The singing of kirtans and dancing is all recreation, but it is regulated because what we are singing is we are singing the glories of the Lord. We are not singing, some mundane Bollywood song, like, I don't know, all the nonsense Bollywood songs. They just say, oh, how beautiful you are and this and that and all that. I mean, those sorts of things. What we sing instead is glories of Krishna. So the singing is there. Devotees.
Sorry, Prabhu, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just saying that eating, so going out to a restaurant, for example, basically to eat nice food. And at Sunday feast, for example, the food is always, like Prabhupada recommended, it should always be a grand feast. And all of us, it's not as if from work, otherwise we go to the restaurants, but we are careful to not eat any food that will have onion, garlic, and all those sorts of things in it. Because after all, you go to work, you have a working lunch and all, you can't not go and not eat. Well, we just have to be regulated in our in what we eat. So go ahead, Prabhuji.
So then, is the playing sports, football, whatever, cricket, volleyball, details, those are the details, but playing sports to keep our body healthy, is that allowed?
That's okay, Prabhuji. In fact, ball games are considered Krishna conscious games. Even Krishna used to play ball games with his friends. So, playing is a natural activity, especially young children. They should play. And even us grown-ups, if we have a chance to play, that's fine. That's fine. But, we don't play gambling games and all those sorts of things. But otherwise, playing is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, bro.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
You're welcome. Krishna consciousness, your original question, if I understood right, sometimes people cast Krishna consciousness as like a punishment movement. Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Not sometimes, most of the time.
Most of the time. See, that is not correct. That is not how Prabhupada meant it to be. And as we've just read also, it says you have to be regulated in our habits of recreation. Otherwise, why would recreation even come up here as a topic, right? It would be like, oh, recreation, no. That's a don't. Recreation is natural. Krishna is always playing and dancing and jumping around and happy,
Yeah, that's true.
And then, and on the other hand, you see in that there's that book Atlas Shrugged, or like there are some depictions of God as a very old and very tired man. And God is not. Krishna is ever young and fresh, and he's a youth, and he always stays. Sorry, what did you say, bro?
Navayavanamcha. Navayavan.
Yeah. So Krishna consciousness is a very happy moment. Brahma bhuta prasanna atma na shochati na kankati.
Yeah, very well said, Prabhu. Thank you.
You're welcome, Prabhu. other questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Prabhu.
Prabhuji, on this topic of recreation, it reminded me of a Leela. There was a devotee called Kalidas. He's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that he took the prasad, Mahaprasad remnants of every single devotee of in Bengal. So all the devotees would be, they would be afraid of him because he was always after the Mahaprasad of the devotees. And he used to play dice. Yeah, I mean, he was an associate of the Lord, but he used to play dice, and playing, he used to chant the Lord's holy names, and that way, as long as one can remember the Lord, one can maybe, it's no harm, like you mentioned. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I mean, so those are some exceptional devotees doing, things which they can pull more weight than we can, So for us, it is safe to stay away from gambling, but,
Yes, I can share the link, Prabhuji, in the chat of, it's a very beautiful pastime of Kalidas going to a devotee's home, and then how he takes the remnants. He used to hide where all the devotees used to take their feast, and then later he would go and have the remnants.
yeah. Very nice. Yes, please share, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Very nice. Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
I think this is a kind of never-ending topic because it pertains to our day-to-day activities. What Krishna explained. Yeah. So, like Amrish Maharaj, all those are still an activity. He's not sitting in one place and just chanting. No, he's engaging all his senses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is it's very difficult, but it is achievable under guidance.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that people ask, so it's there in Prabhupada's Leela Amrit, basically. Like devotees ask, that Prabhupada, you say that we should not engage in prajalpa, but when we are at work and you're associating with people, I mean, obviously you have to participate in conversations with them. You can't start talking to them about, only Krishna consciousness. I mean, they'll not want to talk to you. So what should we do about that? And I mean, the practical guidance is that, I mean, you engage in it to the minimum extent possible. And at the same time, just ensure that it doesn't contaminate your thoughts. Don't dwell upon it. If it's necessary, just like when you meet someone in the office, how are you? How was your weekend? All that kind of thing. I mean, you have to discuss those sorts of things. But as long as it's it's superfluous, it's not something that's important to you. It's not something that you get absorbed by. And as long as you're conscious that, okay, this isn't really part of my Krishna consciousness, but it's just part of my mundane activities, which are kept to a minimum. They're not important. You're safe. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Prabhu.
I was just completing and saying that the idea is that you don't want nonsensical, non-Krishna related topics or conversations or ideas to contaminate our thinking, because otherwise then it becomes difficult to concentrate the mind on Krishna. That's all. Go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for sharing. One of the preachers from India, I heard, so it could be for a joke also, but he was explaining, about on the same topic, recreation. So somebody asked, recreation, you can't play sports. He said, yeah, you can play sports, but make it Krishna conscious. Whatever sport you play. And he gave the example of kabaddi. I don't know, you know kabaddi.
Yeah.
You know kabaddi, right? So
yeah.
whenever that player used to go to the other side to catch people, then he say kabaddi, 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 kabaddi. Instead of that, say Krishna, 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 Krishna. So that game becomes Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, because then he's chanting, others are hearing. And then if you tell them, okay, in our game, this is what you have to do when you come to our side.
Similarly, when in cricket, if you hit, 4 or if you hit 6, you say Hari Bol. It's Hari Bol. It's a sixer. So just relating, like making fun, but it has some meaning in it. So even if you do, you utter Krishna's name, and so that way at least we are kind of Krishna consciousness. But that does not give us liberty to do in every game and play everything and then say Krishna. No, that doesn't give us liberty.
Right.
So you have to be very intelligent.
True. Very true. Good point there, bro. Yeah. Can't just get swayed, or use it as a loophole. I can do anything and say, oh, I'm, then I'll say at the end of it, I'll say Hare Krishna.
Right. If the association allowed, then only one can do, like in the kabaddi and the cricket, means all people are from the Krishna consciousness, then one can do. Otherwise, how empire will be kind of Hari Bol. So that, it won't be feasible. So that's what Prabhupada also said, Des Kal Patra. Right?
Yeah.
So Des Kal Patra, accordingly, we have to be framed. Means,
Right. Time,
right.
place.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's a very, very practical way of framing it, actually.
Prabhupada said, like, while book distribution, he was saying that if required, you can wear the tie and suit and jacket, and then you can go. And otherwise, they were pushing. I mean, they were not allowing on the railway station or somewhere in the office area. So somebody looking gentleman kind of things, then they allow there. So yes, Prabhupada allowed on that time that you go with a suit and tie and distribute the book. The idea is to propagate the Krishna consciousness, have the Krishna consciousness in the mind, and so overall that we have to keep. It doesn't matter but overall, whatever the basic things are there, we have to follow, like the 4 regulative principles, and so those things that have to be maintained in all circumstances. And,
Right. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. I mean, that's very good framework,
Right.
So, I mean, even like going to work. So since we put tilak in 12 different places on our body, but what about the visible tilak on the forehead? So, so like our Guru Maharaj and like I know Prabhupada said, you just do a water tilak here. You have got the tilak, but you cannot go everywhere with the tilak visible. So it's okay. But your consciousness is still that, okay, I have put my tilak on,
Right.
According to time, place, and circumstance, you're adjusting.
Yeah, nice, bro.
Nice, bro.
Okay, bro.
Thank you. Thank you again. Wonderful session.
Thank you.
Session.
Always be inspiring and enlivening to be with all of you, and just glorify to the extent that we can.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll meet next week. Thanks to everyone. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyascha patitanam pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai.
Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.